Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. I received an email from a Lovefraud reader who had only one question, and it's a question that I hear frequently. Do sociopaths return? I'm Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com, and tonight I'm going to answer this question. I'll also tell you what to do if a sociopath does return. Of course, this is a live streaming show, and I'll answer your questions at the end of this presentation. So please send them as we go along by chat. You can also use the super chat function to ask your question. All right, so let's get started. Do sociopaths return? Well, here's the short answer to the question. Some of them leave and never return, but some sociopaths do return. If you've been romantically involved with a sociopath, you may have experienced the sudden devalue and discard. One day the sociopath loves you, the next day he or she tosses you aside like a piece of trash and walks away without looking back. As the person left behind, you're in shock. You probably had no idea that your partner was unhappy. You may ask yourself, did I do something wrong? Why didn't he or she say something? Can't we work this out? You are also astounded at the callousness of your partner's behavior. All those statements of I love you and we're soulmates, didn't they mean anything? And after all the time you've spent together and everything you've been through, how can this person just get up and leave? Well, the key to understanding this is to recognize that any involvement with a sociopath is about exploitation. The sociopath exploiting you. So it may be that your former partner has drained all your resources and there's nothing left to take. Or your former partner has found a juicier target. Or your partner simply decides that he or she is bored. For whatever reason, you are no longer of any use and the sociopath is out of here. If this person doesn't return, consider yourself lucky. But sometimes the sociopath does return. They often have a sixth sense for knowing when you may be receptive to hearing from them again. They just seem to know when your anger has subsided, or you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling strong enough to be just friends. And then, because they've spent so much time studying you when you were together, they know exactly what approach will hook you again. So, they may proclaim their love, confessing that they never knew how much they truly loved you until you were gone. Or they may apologize profusely, seeming to take responsibility for their heartless actions, while conveniently blaming something else for their bad behavior, such as work stress, or their crazy ex, or alcohol problem. They may promise to go to counseling, or to church, or to rehab. Or they say they've already been to counseling, or church, or rehab, and they've changed. Or they seduce you sexually. So why do they return? I assure you it's not because they love you and miss you. Probably what happened is that the juicier target has thrown them out and they have no place to go. Or perhaps you have a swimming pool and the new target doesn't have one. Yes, I have absolutely heard that story. So whatever the reason, they figure that they were able to manipulate you before, so they assume they'll be able to manipulate you again. Now, I have personal experience with this situation. My sociopathic ex-husband, James Montgomery, played both sides of the return, don't return game. When I found out that Montgomery had a child with another woman during our marriage, I left him. Yeah, he made a few weak, pathetic attempts to get me to come back, like telling me that the woman was a lesbian friend who wanted a child and he was just doing her a favor. I shouldn't take the fact that he had a child with another woman personally. Yeah, that's what he said to me. Unbelievable. But I was done and I never saw him again. He didn't even show up for our divorce. But Montgomery swindled multiple women before me. I wasn't the only victim. And he continued swindling women after me. This was how James Montgomery lived his life. So eventually I spoke to one of the women who came before me, Jody, who was divorced from a doctor and had substantial assets. That meant, of course, that there was more for Montgomery to take, and that's exactly what he did. When she started running out of money, Montgomery moved on to his next target, who he married. Now, this was before I met him. And then, when his new wife was running out of money, he reached out to Jody again. He told her what a mistake it had been to leave her, how he always loved her, how she was so loyal, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, Jody fell for it and went back to him, and, as you can expect, gave him more money. It did not turn out well for Jody. If you want to read or listen to my whole wild story, it's all in my first book, which is called Lovefraud, and there's a link to it in the description below this video window. So, suppose that sometime after your breakup with the sociopath, you get a call, text, or email from your ex. What do you do? In many Lovefraud articles and videos, I've explained that to end an involvement with a sociopath, you must have no contact with him or her. If the sociopath returns after a period of time, your response must be exactly the same. Maintain no contact. Now, they may catch you off guard by contacting you from a phone number or email address that you haven't blocked. They may actually show up unannounced at your home or workplace. Do not fall for their apologies, excuses, or professions of love. Never forget, once a sociopath is an adult, this person does not change. Sooner or later, the old games will start again, except they'll probably be worse. And you'll be weakened from being around this person again, which will make it more difficult for you to escape. So, in summary, no contact is how you recover, and no contact is how you continue to protect yourself. If the sociopath dumps you and disappears, count your blessings. Do not reach out to this person. No, you do not need closure from him or her. Work on breaking your addiction to the relationship, which is much easier to do when the predator is out of your life. If a sociopath does return, no matter how much time has elapsed, do not let this person back into your life. Remember, once a sociopath is an adult, they cannot overcome this personality disorder. Yeah, they can fake it for a while, but this person will never be the kind, considerate partner that you deserve. They just can't do it. So always remember, no contact is forever. That's the presentation for tonight. Next, I'll go ahead and answer some of your questions. As I said before, we've implemented Super Chat on this YouTube show, which offers you the opportunity to contribute to the work that we do here at Lovefraud. And we've received some nice donations, which I really appreciate, and thank you for it. So if you'd like to support us, just click the $ in the chat window and slide the button to the amount that you'd like to give. Here's a tip. If you type your question in a Super Chat, it helps me to see them, and that way it will be easier for me to address anything that you wanted to bring up. Also, there's a link in the description below this window if you wanted to make a tax-deductible contribution to Lovefraud's education programs. If you want to do that, we really appreciate it. Okay, so let's see, there's been some chats going on. take a look. So we have some comments about spiritual warfare. And there is definitely, in my opinion, a spiritual dimension to all of these situations with sociopaths. In fact, the full title of my first book is Lovefraud: How Marriage to a Sociopath Fulfilled My Spiritual Plan. And that's one of the themes of the book. I mean, it's actually pretty wild. It's kind of like a cross between a true crime novel and a spiritual journey. But there were a lot of very deep lessons in this experience, for me, at any rate. And I don't wish entanglement with a sociopath on anyone, but there is the possibility that if this has happened to you, that there could be a larger lesson and a bigger picture in coming to understand what has happened. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that yes, there, in my opinion, there absolutely is a spiritual dimension to this. There is a dark side. There are people who have been evil for a long time, and continue to be evil. What's important for the rest of us is to recognize that all of us are responsible only for our own salvation. I know in my case, I was trying to get my ex to see the light, so to speak, and it's not our job. I mean, their journey is their journey, our journey is our journey, and in many cases, the answer is to actually let the person go. I mean, stop trying to fix them, stop trying to hold them accountable. They talk about karma. It does come around, although we might not see it. We might not be aware of it, but they're creating their own problems, and our job is to live our own best lives. So let's see if we have any other questions. So Lisa, I'm so glad that Lovefraud has helped you. It makes it all worthwhile. My experience was traumatic, as all of yours are. We got some contributions. Thank you so much. But anyway, we've all been through the mill. We can get to the other side, and the way to do it is to find the deep pain that was caused within us through these experiences, and recognize that it could be connected to other experiences, and really work on releasing that negative energy and that pain. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. It's not pretty. It can take some time, but it absolutely can be done. And, once you get rid of all that old garbage, the dregs of sediment from all the different wounds we've suffered from the most recent sociopath and from whatever made us vulnerable to the sociopath, life can be really good, and a lot of good stuff can happen. But we have to do the work. No one can get rid of the emotional pain for us. We have to do that ourselves. And it's worth the effort, absolutely worth the effort. And things can be great when you get to the other side. So Deborah Lynn says, take all the lessons you learned as a life gift. That's the reason they were in our lives. If you get the lesson, you're done, and if not, you'll repeat. Yeah, there definitely are lessons to be learned. Some of us don't want to think about that. It's a hard concept, because typically we're the ones who have done everything right. We've been kind, we've been generous, we've tried to be non-judgmental. I know that was my experience. I wasn't a criminal. I never ripped anybody off. And, so why in the world was I involved with this situation? But there definitely was things for me to release. And what it turned out to be was mistaken ideas about myself, and just wounds of the past. There definitely can be learning experience out of this. As I said, I don't wish it on anybody, but unfortunately, if you were at the last week's Lovefraud Lessons broadcast, I talked about how many there are. There's millions of these people out there, and so the chances that we're going to run into somebody like this are pretty good, unfortunately. But we can learn to protect ourselves, and we can recover. So, and all that work is done internally. So there's even if you're still kind of trapped in your situation, if you can work on releasing the pain internally, it may help you to get out, and it may help to shift the energy of what's going on. So the answer is always within. It is always within. And so that's the place to look when you want to heal and recover and escape. So Lou 12340 says, I feel there are more psychopathic narcs than being reported. What do you think? I estimated that if you look at the experts and how they estimate, what's being diagnosed, or they call it the prevalence of the condition. So you look at the experts and they say, 4% are antisocial, up to 6% are narcissistic, and there's lots and lots of different estimates. So it's a range. But if you look at them, they kind of average out that about 12 to 15% of the population can be diagnosed as having one of these sociopathic personality disorders, which means antisocial, narcissistic, borderline, histrionic, or psychopathic personality disorders. Now, what that means is the number who can be diagnosed. That means they meet all the criteria. But these disorders are on a spectrum. So what that means is that there's a range, and there are people who have some of the traits but not all of the traits, or they have the traits to lesser or greater degrees. So besides the 12 to 15% who could be diagnosed as meeting all the criteria, who knows how many millions have partial disorders or have some of the traits but not all of them. So you don't want to be around these people either. They're still exploiters, they're still manipulators. And those numbers could be far off. They could be low. But there's no way to know. There's no way to know how many people don't meet all the criteria, or at least I've never seen anything on that. It's hard enough to try and figure out the people who do meet the criteria, let alone those who partially meet the criteria. So, you might be able to assume that there are just as many people who are partially disordered as there are who are fully disordered. So then if you add that up, we're talking 24 to 30% of the population. Is that accurate? Don't know. But yeah, it's a big number. Yeah, they are everywhere. And so the key is to know that they're out there, know that they look just like the rest of us, and know the warning signs so that you can protect yourself. Okay. All right, so stool pigeon. Well, that's a name. Do psychopaths' relationship cycles get shorter as they age? As in, do they go through the targets more quickly? I can say that The behavior, for the most part, stays just as bad or gets worse as psychopaths age. That can manifest in a lot of different ways. But I am working on my senior sociopaths book. You know, I've talked about that a few times. And I researched, I did a survey with an internet survey that was answered by more than 2,000 people. And one of the questions that I asked was, did you know this person before age 50 and after age 50? And a certain percentage of them said yes. And then I asked, did the person's behavior get better, stay the same, or get worse after age 50? And 93% of the survey respondents said that the person's behavior was just as bad or worse after age 50 as it was when he was younger, or she. It had plenty of females who were reported on. So the bottom line is that their behavior does not improve. It can get worse. And so, yeah, that could manifest as cycling through targets more quickly. That's one of the possibilities, but they're just... Quite a few people said that they weren't interested in maintaining the charade anymore. I mean, they didn't even try any longer to, you know, appear to be normal. They just didn't have the energy or the desire to do that. So that's something that I heard a lot of. The bottom line is, if you're involved with a sociopath, a psychopath, antisocial on any level, there's this rumor, common wisdom, I guess you could say, in the mental health profession that they burn out. They don't. All right, this is never going to get any better. So if you're involved with somebody like this, don't wait for it to change, because it won't. You know, they're not going to mellow out. They're not going to mature. And, you know, the sooner you come to grips with that and get the person out of your life, the better off you'll be. So Nobi says, I've learned it's dangerous to give the sociopath the benefit of the doubt. That gut feeling I'm always going to listen to. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the ways we get in trouble. You know, because we do want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And we do want to give people a second chance and things like that. And they absolutely take advantage of that. So, you know, if you get a bad feeling that something is off with a person, you need to honor that, because that's your intuition, that's your instincts of giving you a good warning. And so the trick is to pay attention to it. Ms. Donna, will you do a workbook for healing? Gosh, you know, I've got like 3 different books already in the works. But yes, I absolutely hope to do that at some time. I do have one recovery book that's already done. In fact, I could pull it out over here. Whoops, there they go. We have this one. It's Recovery from a Sociopath. And so there's a lot of information in here, that little short articles that could help you. So that's something that we already have, because I will admit that writing books takes a lot of time, so it might be a while till I develop something else. But this one could help you now. Okay. All right, so Jalen Gambler says, what age is considered adult for someone who suffers with a personality disorder? Is the likelihood of changing based on cognitive function? Adult is like age 18. There's actually a criteria for antisocial personality disorder that No one can be diagnosed as having that disorder before the age, I believe it's 18. There's another disorder called conduct disorder, which is for younger people, children and young adults. So I would say 18. Now the thing is that because this disorder is highly genetic, that means that it can manifest in children, and most often it does tend to appear at puberty, or when people are there's a strong link between testosterone and these behaviors. So once that testosterone starts kicking in, it tends to magnify any possibility of disorder. So a lot of people start showing real symptoms 13, 14, 16, 17, whenever that happens. As far as recovery, the work needs to be done with very young children, and there's some possibility with adults. I'm not sure if there's been research on how cognitive ability affects this, because the bottom line of this disorder is that people with antisocial or psychopathic personality disorder, and to a certain extent narcissists as well, simply do not have the ability to love. And so that's an emotional phenomenon. It doesn't have a whole lot to do with the intellect, and that's where the deficiency is. So that's why when children are young, there's a possibility of teaching them how to love, but that window closes, and then it becomes like really difficult. So all right, so Tarot Time with Andy is asking, do you feel that this trend of adult-child estrangement, NPD, ASPD, if treated well? Now, I'm afraid I'm not quite understanding your question. Sorry, I don't get the question. Okay, so CC is me says, Donna, should I sit with my 30-year-old daughter down and tell her what her father really is? I think yes. Got another donation. Thank you so much. I think yes. She's 30 years old. She's not a child anymore. And, your ex has probably been smearing you for a really long time, like your whole life, her whole life. And, if you never refute what's said about you, then that's what they believe. She's an adult. I think it's, even when young people are even a little younger than that, maybe in their 20s or something like that, the time comes where they should know the truth, at least in my opinion. I've never heard anybody tell me that telling their adult child what was really going on was an error. But you might need to do it in small doses. Maybe you just tell a little bit and, or maybe you ask questions or ask if she has questions. Because, she's probably been hearing a slanted version of what went on her whole life. And, eventually we all need to know the truth. Okay. Okay. So Stool Pigeon says, when psychopaths are in the love bombing stage, is it common for them to have other targets on the go already, cheating during the early stage of their new relationship? anything's possible. You know, it just depends on the person. Usually they are pursuing, you know, they're just throwing out hooks to see who bites. And yeah, they could have, actually, yeah, because now I think about it, I mean, my ex did that. You know, he was online and he had multiple people who were responding to his ad, and he was working all of us, you know, trying to see, you know, who would be the best target. And lucky me, I was the one who won. So yes, it absolutely is possible for a sociopath, even in the beginning stages, to have multiple targets on the line. Okay, well, thank you all very much. This has been a great conversation. I hope that it's been helpful for you. Thank you for the folks who have made some contributions, including Nobi Brooklyn. I see that. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back next Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And I'll see you then. Thanks again.